my Monday morning for me community. So happy to see you all. Ah, I'd like to just take a moment and appreciate that technology works as well as it does, and that we can join with each other even though we're not in the same location. I don't take that for granted because I find our connection so incredibly valuable, such a source of nourishment. And that's why I keep doing that. And that's what I intend that all of us experience, is the kind of nourishment that is going to create the most presence, the availability for connection, and especially continuing to open up to receiving. One thing I've noticed is that, particularly in and being with Gay as he's navigating how to recover from his broken leg, is that all of us are trained that we're not worthy. We're not worthy to have attention, to actually receive it, to take it in. And so one thing I want to have you open up to, just as we're beginning today, and also I just want to share with you my Dr. Seussian top. So I thought, what better for a day that's a little bit gloomy and not quite spring yet, is to go Seussian. So that move, and I want to invite you, when things are kind of going, do a lateral move, do something wild and crazy and friendly to yourself. So let yourself check what parts of you are really open to receiving. First just check, are you open to receiving someone else's attention to you, like looking at you? And just notice, is there any way in which your face kind of hides, or you put on a little mask so that nobody knows what's going on in there? And then your chest, your heart, just notice, are you, as you're breathing, are you open to receiving? Are you feeling a little guarded? Your belly, which for most people is the fear center, is that you feeling open to receiving attention, receiving nourishment of all kinds, not just food? In fact, one of the reasons I do this is that this nourishment has really become as important to me, and I can feel it, as food and water. And I say that, and the research is really clear that attention, giving and receiving attention, is as vital to our well-being as food and water. But most of us forget that. And so this is a time where we can open up to receiving, and so that our giving is an overflow and not a depletion. And also check your belly, your hips and your legs and your feet, what you stand on that allows you to move around in the world. Are you willing to receive nourishment up through your roots? Rooting is one of our fear melters, and it might be fun to start with that, of just imagining your feet having roots that gently reach down into the ground, and you're receiving the nourishment from the earth just as you move around. And so even as you're here, you can feel your weight going from one hip to the other, to your sits bones, feeling your feet. And then just get an overall sense of, would you be willing to expand your ability to receive? I really think that the big move that each of us can make is willing to be impacted by love, willing to let love rearrange us. And even though there may be rapids that you ride through, that ultimately you receive more nourishment when you're willing to be impacted. So what gets in the way of that is fear. And the 4 expressions of fear all prevent us from receiving the nourishment of attention. So the fight, puts up this big So just get fighty for a minute and notice that when you're fighty, you can't receive anything. You get rigid, you get hard. And then when you flee, let yourself just flee for a minute, you're not here. So you can't actually receive because you're not here. And notice how you flee. Like a lot of us have learned to flee up, like, well, why are we doing this right now? And or flee forward. Well, what if I get all open and then everybody leaves me? So fleeing, keeps us from receiving attention. And then freeze, of course, let yourself freeze, like, uh-oh, that whole sense of I've done something wrong. So almost all of us have been taught that, either through our parents or through society. There's no accident that original sin is part of what most of us have experienced. Like there's something basically wrong with us. And you're not ever going to get over it. But if you're good enough in this life, then after you're dead, it'll be better. So what I would like is for right now, no matter how you're feeling, that you can expand your ability, particularly to receive love. And then, of course, there's faint, which is the overwhelm, which I think so many of us are experiencing right now, because there's just so much crazy stuff going on out there in the world. So notice which one of those fears may be getting in the way of your being an open sponge for receiving attention. And I want to invite you to let yourself play with love scoops in a little bit of a different way. I'd like you to imagine, I don't know if you've ever been in one of those little bouncy houses that they have for kids' birthday parties, where you climb in and then you can just bounce around and fall around. And so I'd like you to, and that's sort of why I have my Dr. Seussian, because it's sort of a bouncy house top. And I'd like you to imagine that you're standing or falling around in the bouncy house, and that what you're doing is just reaching out and bringing that bouncy kind of love to yourself. So you can reach out to the sides and let it come into any of those places where you're feeling depleted. And if you kind of, whoa, you go over, well, you're not going to hurt yourself because you're in a bouncy house. And the whole idea of the energy of the bouncy house, that we can have attention if it spills or we fall over, we're just totally fine because we're held within the bouncy house of love. And I'd like you to let yourself play with some new ways of bringing in love scoops, and actually you can then let it kind of bounce down into receiving. Because a lot of this, we have that, it's very serious, this whole idea of, fear, and moving from fear to, it's very serious, but it's hard to do that when you're in a bouncy house. So let yourself play with, you can bring it in from the top, and you can reach out the front and bring it around to your back. So just letting yourself play with love scoops. And my thighs are saying, oh, please, me too, me too. So they're bouncing and I'm giving some love to them. And then let yourself just pause for a moment and notice if you've opened up more space for receiving. I'm noticing that my lungs feel more expanded. I'm feeling my ribs kind of louvering, like Venetian blinds, moving out to the side and opening more. And when I take in that breath, I can then feel that my whole body settles. There's I was also wondering about, and this whole question about how we can consistently move out of time urgency into space. And I find our giving and receiving of attention with each other does that for me. It moves me out of time into a kind of timeless place. But I also, like just playing with the bouncy house, moved me out of time and into this playful relationship to space. So the love scoops, and then also you're giving and receiving your attention. So we can play with. So imagine that you're still in the bouncy house and your attention has that playful kind of tossing quality. You're giving it out to the world and then you're bringing it back to you. And when I do that, I get more rounded and swirly rather than hard and rigid. And I think that's a much more nourishing movement to have in your body. We already have, we know how to do that. We know how to march and go and do, but a lot of, having goofy and playful and rounded and unexpected rather than just marching through life and doing the things you're supposed to do, that you can play with giving and receiving attention. So you can actually even do that with your eyes closed too. We often think it has to come through your eyes, but let yourself just be imagining being in the bouncy house and all of that playful energy that you get, from falling over and rolling around with different people, and then letting that just be sent out into wherever it's most needed right now. So it could be locally, it could be globally, and then come back to giving that to yourself, refreshing yourself with. Oh, I'm also finding that I want to be doing some moving of my face. See if you've got some fighty or fleey, freezy in your face. So you can let your face do a little bouncy house. And also let yourself do some kind of giving and receiving attention that you wouldn't describe as like you. It's not like you to do this. So you might get really big and forward, or you might get very delicate and dancy. You might sprinkle yourself with glittery attention. Do something unlike you, and then just notice that's attention too. And the other thing that would just occurred to me is that people, in my experience, when people are mostly doing the best they can, so that the kind of attention that you're getting, it may not be like what you would have designed and ordered up, but it is attention. And so notice if you're willing to receive the nutrient, even though it may be a little muddy or it's not quite what you would have ordered up, but it's still the nourishment of attention. And by playing with it in you, you can turn it into whatever kind of fuel you want. And then let yourself give attention in a new way. So you've been giving attention to you in a new way. So let your mind and body just come up with a whole new way of giving attention out there. What just came to me was that somebody told me a joke. This was really, really a long time ago. And I had my milk come out my nose and it kind of all sprayed out my nose. And I thought, well, that's an unusual way of giving attention. So letting your love spray come out your nose, or letting your attention come out the top of your head, like with a toot toot with an engine roar. So imagining expanding your ways of giving and receiving attention so that it doesn't become work for you, that it's all about play and expanding your ability. So now I want to also just have you order up what kind of attention you might like right now. If there's anybody who really I really want people to just appreciate me extravagantly. So just put that in the chat. So you just write in the chat if there's any kind of attention you want. And then we'll just play with giving that to everybody, including you and ourselves. So if you see any words in the chat, let me know, Michelle. But let's just go ahead and appreciate, that is in giving sensitive awareness. So just notice if there's any other place in you that would like your sensitive awareness.
We've got some warm, oozy hugs.
Oh, I love that.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So
Fuzzy, warm,
oozy.
fuzzy hugs as well. So warm,
Yeah. So
oozy.
I'm thinking teddy
Mhm.
bears and cinnamon buns. I'm defrosting a cinnamon bun that I got last week for Gay, and that's going to be his big treat for his morning break. We brought him home. Gay's home now, so we're doing rehab from home. It's been quite a journey, and so things are moving along there. So warm and fuzzy. So sending it out, but also making sure you give it to you. And then I'm going to pull up our Presence Connect play and see what we've got for today. Presence says befriend feelings and be with. So for me, on all of these experiences, particularly in the experiences with Gay and the all of the fears and trauma and so forth that came up, what I really got was all he needed was for me to be with. And so that's what we're really practicing here, is our ability to be with, which for me is presencing. It's also love. I think of presence and love as really interchangeable. So notice if there are any feelings, that is emotions, arising for you that are calling for you to be with. And one of my favorite ways of being with is to imagine that my feeling, whether it's anger or sadness or grief, or and that my feeling is sitting next to me on a porch swing that I really love, and I have a swing in back that has the most wonderful rhythm of rocking. And so being with is really the most powerful, especially with feelings, because we think we have to do something to them, we have to get rid of them, we have to help. And I've really seen that when you be with feelings, you liberate the energy of feelings so that you have more energy for connecting and collaborating. Oh, and Connect says reflect feelings. We're having feelings today. So reflect would be, I see something. I heard you sigh, and it sounds like there are some feelings going on. I notice you touching your chest. I'm wondering if you're feeling sad. So reflecting feelings, I'm hearing a little hesitation, or it just sounds like there's some feelings going on. You don't have to diagnose, but when you let somebody know, oh, it sounds like there's some feelings going on, that then opens more of the connection. Because almost all of us have learned that you got to control your feelings. Feelings are bad. You got to push them down or push through them, rather than just being with them and sharing them. And play is let your body get heavy and then light. So that's kind of what we were doing with the bouncy house. So when you're in the bouncy house, that allows your attention to get light. When you it's actually strong, but nobody knows really what that means. So heavy really means like oomph, get into your oomph. So sometimes I want my attention, like sometimes I look at my cats and they're just about to biff each other, and I let my attention get very strong, and I look at them and I go, girls. And they, that strong kind of attention interrupts the getting ready to biff. So the way that you change your weight changes your impact of how you use attention. So there are all kinds of fun things to explore with Presence Connect Play, which my sense is will help expand your ability to do your loop of awareness and your love scoops. So thank you very much for being with me together in our bouncy house today. And please continue the conversation as you wish. And I look forward to seeing you next time. And I love that we are sharing our animal companions and pets and balls and yay and hats and hearts. So until next time,
Thank you for your pink top.
thank you. My pleasure.